I said, I don't have anything, but I heard that you're a God that'll take my nothing and make something of it. So he's not even done yet, right? He's still doing something with it.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, so I gave him my nothing. I had nothing else to offer him. And really, he didn't want anything but me.
You didn't even have riches, right?
And nothing.
You have nothing.
You know, and this is one of the things I tell people. God doesn't want your sin. He wants your life.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Journey. I'm Julianne Hartman, and today I have a very special guest with me, Pete Cabrera Jr. Thank you so much. Now, the name of your ministry is Royal Family
International University.
International University, which you have probably seen him on YouTube, or you're like, maybe you haven't, but I saw him on YouTube just about 8 months ago, and really what caught me was the testimonies of so many healings. And I love to work out and watch healing testimonies. And as some of you already know, I love testimonies because that really kept me like just on a whole different level of faith as I was going through my healing journey myself. So through that, of course, what got my attention were the actual testimonies. But after that was, a teaching came on. Right. And I was like, oh, okay, so he's not just a street evangelist, but he also is an incredible teacher. And so today, we're gonna talk about his testimony. You can go on, so I want you right now in the beginning of this, tell everybody where they can find you so they can watch your stuff, because we're gonna get into his testimony today, but.
Yeah. So you can go to YouTube, or you could just Google Pete Cabrera Jr., or you can go to www.royalfamilyinternational.com.
Okay.
And that'll give you all the links. I'm on Facebook. I have a podcast, All Jesus Podcast. I'm on every platform.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Okay, so All Jesus, A-L-L.
Mm-hmm.
All Jesus, which is awesome. And so just start Googling him and just get what you can, because the teaching is it's very deep, and it's awesome, and it's life-changing. And so today, what I thought we could do is, as I've listened to all different teachings of yours, I haven't actually heard one of a testimony, like one where you like really talked about your testimony. So I'd like to share that with everybody, because this is how amazing God is, right? That when you hear this testimony, you're like, and he works through this man daily. He loves this man. He is setting the captives free through this man. And so it's awesome. And God is no respecter of persons. So just let you know, if you say yes, God will work through you big time. So, all right, so now, Pete, so were you raised a Christian? And how did you end up coming to the Lord? And what was I know I'm throwing a lot of questions at you one time, but what was your family life like growing up? Were you raised a Christian? And then let's go into how you became a Christian.
Okay. So.
But I'm still gonna stop you in between and ask.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course. So yeah, I was not raised in a Christian home. I didn't know what Christianity was. We claim to be Catholic, but that's just kind of, when you're raised Catholic, there's some that are actually Catholics that are devoted, and others that just say they are, right? So we came from we just said we're Catholic, but I didn't even know what that meant. So yeah, I wasn't raised in the church at all. I believed that there was a God, but I didn't know this God. And so yeah, I got introduced to Christ after, I had a struggle with addiction.
Okay.
So I was a crack addict for 10 years and tried everything to get free from it. Went to rehabs, tried everything. Tried even taking my life at one point. And so I had an encounter with God. My mother ended up leading me to the Lord and gave my life to Jesus. Now, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I just knew I didn't have anything. And I remember the prayer. I said, I don't have anything, but I heard that you're a God that'll take my nothing and make something of it. So he didn't he's not even done yet, right? He's still doing something with it.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, so I gave him my nothing. I had nothing else to offer him.
Right.
Really, he didn't want anything but me.
You didn't even have riches, right?
had nothing.
You have nothing.
You know, and this is one of the things I tell people. God doesn't want your sin. He wants your life. And we teach people, oh, he wants your sin. No. He wants your life. And your life will magnify a life of purity and holiness if you give your life to him, if it's really given to him. But so that's what ended up happening. And, you know, I struggled with addiction for 10 years, and I struggled with just about everything. Didn't know how to read, had issues, had learning disabilities. I was an LD, ESL, dyslexia. Didn't graduate, not because I didn't want to, but because I was hiding the fact that, you know, I was not educated, right? And so it did a lot to me. It messed me up a little bit.
Yeah.
I was hiding, I was living a lie.
Yeah.
Pretending that I just didn't want to do the work, when in reality, I just didn't know how to do the work.
You know, what's interesting about that, well, my gosh, there's so much to unpack here from, all right, so I know that your father passed away when you were 6. Okay, so then are you the only boy in the family?
I am the oldest.
Okay.
My mother remarried, and I have a 36-year-old, I think he's 37, younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when your dad passed away, did you try to fulfill that role?
Well, I had an older sister, and she turned into an alcoholic at the age of 14.
Oh.
Yeah, so she ended up running away. And my mother worked 2 jobs. So I didn't have any type of structure at all. I didn't have any parenting. My God, I just kind of was just left. And
Can you imagine? I mean, think about that. You're 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, and there's no parenting going on. So
At all.
What do you know at that? That's
I didn't know how to comb my hair. I didn't know how to brush my teeth.
Oh.
I didn't know how to shower. We had the state would come because I smelled at school, because they didn't teach me how to wipe, and like I was this kid who's just smelled all the time. Yeah, I can tell you this now because I'm an adult, right?
Yeah.
That as a kid, I didn't know what I didn't know, you know, and
so was your mom working like
didn't go to the dentist, didn't do anything, right? Like just, and because she wasn't educated either,
Okay.
right? She worked in the fields when she was a little girl. My dad got her out of the fields, and so she didn't go to school. So she had, I think, like a 4th grade education. And so she didn't know what she didn't know.
Right.
And so she would go to work and say she was a nurse. And I found out later on that she wasn't a nurse. She was a cleaning lady.
Oh, she told you she was a nurse to make you think she was.
Yeah, and I asked her, I said, Mom, were you ever a nurse? Because you said you were a nurse. She's like, no, I just said that.
Oh.
She was ashamed. She was
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. Is a little parallel there where you kind of did the same thing at school. You didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's the same hiding.
Hiding it. And
But she understood the shame.
yeah.
And she didn't. No one should understand that. But she knew where that was coming from. Where you had no idea because you're so young.
That was kind of put on me, you know.
Well, who taught you then? Like, hey, Pete, you need to brush your teeth and, you know, wash your hair and wash your body and.
Well, you know, you start getting older.
Right.
Right. And so you start realizing stuff. Right. But by then you already have habits.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
What was your friend group like?
Oh, man. I was a big time thief. I was in and out of jail. I was in the system. I did a year in county when I was 13 years old.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, in Garden City, Kansas. Right? Broke into houses. I was just all over.
Just for money?
Yeah, I didn't have any. But I broke into my neighbor's house to make a sandwich. And I went to jail.
Did they know it was you at first?
When they called the cops, you know, they asked me why I broke in. I said, because I was hungry.
And they so pressed her.
We didn't have any food. We were like broke all the time. My mother struggled. She was just, and now mind you, she had just lost her husband.
Right.
So she was in and out of failed relationships. She ended up dating alcoholics and she didn't know.
Do you remember how old was your mom when your dad passed? She was still pretty young, I bet.
Yeah, so she had my sister when she was 19.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So
yeah, she would have been
20.
like maybe 20.
Yeah, so she was 27.
Yeah.
My dad died 26. So she's just a baby, right? Yeah, so this is kind of what was going on. And, it's really interesting because you kind of just think things will work out. That's not true.
Yeah.
You got to have some type of structure. I got kids now, so this is, I got some good kids.
Yeah. No,
because I recognize.
Yeah, you have to have structure.
You got to have structure. You don't just say, oh, they're going to turn out, just like anything. You're not just going to have a good marriage because you want one. You're not just going to have a good lifestyle because you want one. You got to work for these things.
Yes.
So when I gave my life to Jesus, I went to rehab. There was a pastor there who would come and do Bible studies with me, and I was having issues. I remember crying, telling them I didn't know my father growing up. He died, and now you're talking to me about my heavenly Father, and I can't read, so how am I supposed to know him? Right? So I don't even know what love is at this point. I don't know what love is. I don't know what relationships are. I don't know what trust is. I've had to rob, steal, lie, cheat, and now I'm supposed to be godly when I don't even know what that is, right? Yeah. And so I was offered, I was offered hope, but I didn't know what that was until I got older. I started realizing that there's truth to this, So I ended up getting out of rehab, and I ended up living with Pastor Mike Joyner. He was my sister's boss, who was a pastor, and she was a secretary. And he kind of just took me under his wing and kind of showed me what it was to be godly.
But where we've kind of jumped over all the addiction.
Yeah.
So that's like a big thing. So how did you get introduced to it?
Well, interestingly enough, my manager at a sheet metal company, used to hang sheetrock. He took me out one day and said, hey, have you ever tried crack? And I'm like, never had done drugs before, never even thought about it, wasn't even on my radar. And he introduced it to me. And knowing what I know now, why would you do that to someone?
Well, I did. Oh, how old were you?
I was 21, I think, 19, 20.
Man, what the heck is wrong
Yeah.
with people? It wasn't just
And he was a
like,
pastor's kid.
yeah, of course. It wasn't just like, hey, like a cigarette. Have you tried crack?
And I think what he was doing was because he knew he was going to work with me, and he kind of wanted to stay in his habit.
Of course.
So he wanted to introduce it to me. So
he didn't get him in trouble.
that's right. So, and that's what ended up happening. And he ended up getting me addicted. Him and his brothers got addicted.
So what does that addiction look like?
What's it look like?
How often do you do, like, you wake up desiring it, like?
Well, once you get that thought in your head that you want to get high, there's almost no removing that thought. It becomes this driven thing, right? It's a desire that doesn't go away. And, crack is an endorphin, so it's endorphins. So it's a drug that makes you feel pleasure. And for someone who's had a nasty life, who hasn't had rest mentally, physically, or emotionally, and you run into this stuff and it shuts off everything, I mean, who wouldn't want to live in that?
So it shuts off the reality, and
you live in bliss, but it's a lie, right? Because it's chemically induced.
So when you start to come down, then you start seeing what the lie
well,
was.
that's the thing. You don't want to come down because now you got to face the fact that you done sold everything, right? And you got to go face the music. You got to face the rent. You got to face your family. You got to face, and so if you stay high, you don't think about it because you're in this non-reality. It's just a lie. And so you try to stay high because you don't want to face the fact that you're failing.
Now, what about like sleep? How do you didn't do a lot of it?
No, you'll be up for days. And I would walk till 2, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, just looking for ways to get money, whether it be stealing, robbing, begging. And every effort was to get that next hit. That's your whole life was driven on, how do I get that next high? How do I get that next high? How do I get that next high? Crazy way to live.
Well, it's kind of interesting because someone that would have that kind of a lifestyle, you'd be like the most incredible salesperson outside of that. You're not just spending that money on drugs, but now because you know, like you were out searching.
Yeah, I was being trained.
You were being trained. Gosh.
Yeah, I was living the life of an evangelist for the other side. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was an evangelist for the demonic.
My gosh. So did anybody at that time ever, a Christian, a non-Christian, someone at Walmart ever go like, hey, and I mean like during that time, I know at the end somebody did, but did anybody at that time where you just laughed at it like, oh, you're a Christian, like I don't want to hear from you?
No, I mean, you know you're messed up.
You do.
And you might defend, the reasons why you're getting high, but deep down inside, you know it ain't right. Everybody knows. They just don't want to face it.
Yeah.
And so it's best just to say, I'm a loser, I'm a nobody, nobody cares. It's better just to say that to yourself, but then that's when the suicidal thoughts come in, because you have to say that to yourself, because no one in their right mind would stay in that state.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And so then did the drugs help with the suicidal thoughts?
Well, when you were high, you weren't thinking about anything but getting high.
Okay.
Right? This is crack, because crack's instant. It's an instant high. And it only lasts 3-4 minutes, but...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the high lasts 3 or 4 minutes, but...
so then
But then you're shaking the whole time because you've done so much of it that your body's responding differently now.
Okay, so I never understood that. So it only lasts a couple minutes, so you're doing more and more to keep that high going.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? How do you sustain that?
You can't. You can't. That's the insanity of it all. There's no sustaining it.
Well, that really, who made this?
Well,
Like who like?
they released it in the 80s onto the streets.
Yeah. Okay. So then was it made in a? You think it's like made in a plant? Because it is.
It's cocaine.
All right.
It's cocaine mixed with the baking soda.
Okay.
So you can smoke it, right?
So someone has. So it was. I mean, think about this. This is how crazy this world is. It was tested, I'm sure, and then put on the streets. Definitely went to the areas where the people, maybe aren't as educated.
Yeah.
And get them hooked on it so that they never become anything that God has called them to do.
Yep.
That is like it's like that's money in the bank. You will never become it. Just like with abortion, with Margaret Sanger. Yeah. But the Planned Parenthood in those areas so that the people would still keep killing babies. So there will be no more of that generation, or that, not that generation, but yeah.
And have you ever thought about this, that they will feed and house a killer, a criminal, and a rapist, but they won't feed and house a homeless guy? Think about that. That's how backwards our world is.
Yeah.
Because crime pays.
It does? So, gosh.
Pays those that are in charge of, prisons and drugs and, I mean, have you ever thought about this? When you go to jail, you're charged. Mm-hmm. And then when you're charged, you're put into a cell.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just let that sit for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Because your efforts and your strengths and everything that God has given you will be used by the enemy if you don't know who you are.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So as we just let that sink in for a minute, man.
Yeah.
All right. So during this time, so you're every minute of the day, you're looking to go get that high. See, I mean, for someone like me, I've never done that, so I don't know what all that would be like. So you'll do anything. You'll steal, you'll
lie,
you'll cheat, you'll do anything to get that. So you were 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a long time. Do you have any idea how much money you might have spent on that? Have you ever added it up?
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I was a binger, so I would be clean for 2-3 weeks.
How would you get clean if
I would just
if you ran out of money?
I would just stop, right? It would get so bad that I would stop, but then things would go good again, and then you go right back.
Now, when you say that, things go good, and what happens?
Well, you know, you start paying rent, you get caught up, and then you're doing good, and then this is the lie. I'm only gonna smoke a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna do a little bit. One's too many and a million's not enough, you know? And that's the lie. And you say, I can control this, and really you can't when you're in addiction.
Yeah.
And it just takes over your life.
So, Pete, let me ask you a question. This is like going way different than I thought, but what is in it that causes the addiction?
It's carnal. It's
Okay, so it's not the actual drug itself.
Yeah, it's what it does is it gives the flesh a feeling of endorphins. It's like a climax,
Okay.
right?
So it's not like an extra ingredient they put in there to
just
make
what it
it's just
does.
like, you know how sometimes, well, not sometimes, but with like the crappy food. There's like stuff in the food that makes you crave it.
Oh, this is interesting because when you smoke for crack, it's instant. It's an instant like pleasure.
Okay.
It's like I've had people say this, right? When they take their first hit, they're like, it's better than sex.
Okay.
So then that's what it does to most people.
So it gets to your carnal mind immediately.
Immediately to your flesh, immediately to those pleasure glands, and it's just, and that's the danger of it because it's instant, right?
And you can have it as much as you want.
Yeah.
Anytime.
At the cost of everything.
Of everything, yeah.
It costs you everything.
Did you see a lot of people around you die?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I saw a really pretty college girl OD and they threw her in the trash.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like it was nothing.
Were you living in a house at this time?
I was in a crack house for 4 days, and God knows what they were doing to her, right? But she fell, and they just picked her up like nothing. And I found out later on that she had passed away. They found her in a dumpster, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to hang myself, because of that. You know,
Because you saw
I didn't do anything.
you didn't do anything.
I was so high. I just wanted to get high.
Oh,
When she fell, she dropped some drugs, and I just went and picked it up.
oh my gosh.
Right? And that's all I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking help her or whatever. I was just, and they took her out and like nothing. And I'm like, I couldn't get that look off, look of her face off my mind for years.
Well, this is how, and it's when you don't have never had this happen, you really don't understand what that draw is. But you're really kind of painting a picture here where where I could say, okay, I see. It's like all you could think about is, I want that feeling again.
Yeah.
I want that feeling. So no matter what, whether it was a girl as she's dying, throwing it on the floor, or going to steal something from someone that you love because you need that.
Yeah. And so that's the reason why now I'm so committed to what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen what commitment to the other side can do. And, people tell you monsters aren't real. Yeah, they are. They're in crack houses and they sell dope, and they'll do whatever they need to do to get high, and they don't think about the consequences. And monsters are real, and it's just people that are lost that don't know who they are. They become the monster. They just don't know it.
Right.
And so we got to look at the monster in the face and tell them, this ain't you, right? And we have the cure. His name is Jesus.
Do you ever feel at times where it's how do I say this? Like, let's say you meet someone that was just like where you were at, that it's like, wow, how do I walk with you on this to get you? Because the guy's understanding, the girl, like, okay, I get it, but it's a journey.
I know how to talk to them because that used to be me.
Okay. But do you think that just in one conversation they could turn?
You just got to be really honest with them and let them know exactly where they're at. They know where they're at. They just think nobody knows where they're at.
Okay.
Right? They hide behind the facade of, oh, it's not that bad. And you're like, whatever. I was there. I said the same things. I went through the same routines. Man, I've been there. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking you're just going to get off this thing and you're going to be fine one day. And that's the lie. You're not just going to get off one day. It has to be now. It has to be now or never, you know. And you got to lead them to the Lord and you got to be there with them because renewing the mind's another thing.
But how do you do this? There's hundreds and thousands and millions of these people.
Yeah.
How many do you know, like at one time, have you known where you're like, okay, I've got like three or four people have come to me. How do you walk that? Like, how do you have the time?
Yeah, you have to disciple them. This is what the programs are for that they have out there. You got to disciple them. You got to be there for them. You got to stop telling them that they're powerless against it because that's a lie. Because in Christ, they're not powerless against it.
Amen. That is so good.
Yeah.
Well, and we're out of time.
Okay.
So, all right, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. So you guys got to come back next week and hear more from what Pete has to say about all of this and what God has done in this man's life. Just to break it down like that, I don't know. I guess I was living in some other kind of reality about crack or any of those drugs. I mean, now they've got worse things than crack, right? Crack is probably nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing now.
Yeah, it's nothing now. So, well, thank you all for joining us today. Again, we've got episode 2 coming up. And we just want to make sure that you know that well, first of all, we love you all. And we're so excited that I know a lot of you are just hang on the next testimony, which I love. But I need you to share this with people. I need you to make sure that other people besides you are hearing this. You never know what people are going through. You never know what's on the inside of someone's heart. You never know what they're thinking. So sharing these videos, just ask the Holy Spirit, like, who needs to get this? And I know you might say, and this might be a carnal mind going, well, I can't send it to, Suzanne. She'll think I think she's a drug addict or something. Well, maybe she has an addiction for something. And the Holy Spirit is telling you to send it. So please listen to the voice. Heed the voice of the Lord, not the voice of the carnal mind that's telling you not to do it. So anyway, go to healingjourneystoday.com and check out everything that we have going on. We've always got great stuff happening, whether they are in-person conferences or new people coming on the platform or just a new journey. So we'd love for you to make sure that you know that because we send out a newsletter to everyone every single month so you know exactly what's happening. So thank you all so much. We love you and we'll see you next time on The Journey.